Hey guys, Dave here in video number 2 of how to prepare for your webinar and crush the delivery. And in this video, we're going to talk about actually delivering the live webinar. So you're finally here, you've clicked start broadcast. Let's talk about how to crush the actual live webinar, some tips and tricks here. And so the first thing to remember, guys, is just to be energetic. I mean, this is a fun thing. You've got a bunch of people who are excited to hear you talk, who've taken time out of their day. They're all thinking, man, I'd be nervous if I was that person. And so there's no reason to be nervous or feel bad about being nervous. Remember that we know that things are going to go wrong, and that's an okay thing. And so there's really no pressure here. You know, the good news is that you click start broadcast and you're going to go out there and you're going to deliver your first webinar, which is a whole lot of fun here, guys. And so just be energetic. Another thing to think about is just to be you. Show your personality. I know that I'm training you on how to deliver webinars, and I've obviously got my own style. I've got my own personality, but a lot of my clients, do things all differently, and their webinars are different, and that's okay. Your audience is going to connect with you and your personality. And if you're, really peppy, be really peppy. If you're, kind of mean, maybe be a little bit mean, just have your personality, and it's okay to be you. And that's going to be so much more attractive than trying to be somebody else. And that's really going to shine through. And so just show your personality on the webinar. One thing that I like to do is just have 1 to 2 questions planned beforehand to ask. So you're going to log in about 15 minutes early. Some people are already going to be there. And then you just want to start asking them questions and engaging them. Questions like, where are you guys located? That's an easy one. And people will tell you back, oh, I'm from North Carolina. And you're going to say, oh, Jack's from North Carolina. Jack, yeah, I actually have family in North Carolina. They're in Charlotte. Where are you located? And just engage back. I mean, don't just say it and then blow past them. Remember, the whole value of the live webinar is that we can engage people and we can actually talk back with them and make connections there that they'll enjoy. Another question that I like is, what business book has most impacted you? This is a fun one just because I like to make a list of these, and I like to, people are passionate about the books that have impacted them. And so I'm trying to connect on an emotional level here with things that are very important to them. And so throughout that 15 minutes, just kind of be engaging people, interacting, asking questions, saying, oh yeah, Charlotte, what part, and just kind of doing that thing. And then every few minutes, you're just going to want to say, all right, guys, for those of you guys that just came in, we're going to be starting here in 12 minutes. We're going to be starting here in 8 minutes. We're going to be started here in 5 minutes. And so stick around. Let me know where you're from in the chat box right now. Let me know that you can hear me. And we're going to be started here in 5 minutes. And so just close out of Facebook, get settled in, go to the bathroom if you need to, and we will get rolling here. But I'm so glad you're here. You just want to say things like that inside of there, and just hang out in the chat. That's a principle for the entire webinar, not just for, the pre-webinar, but for the entire webinar. We need to remember this is a presentation, this is a conversation, not a presentation. So you're not presenting here. This is really a conversation. This should be an interactive thing. And it's all right if you, break from your slides to go look in the chat and talk to people back and forth there. I mean, that's the value of this. And so that's an okay thing. So just something that we talk about is hang out inside the chat and really engage these people. And then finally, just as you get going here, it's important to start right on time. It's important to value their time. And so I like to start right on time if at all possible and say, all right, guys, it's 2:00 here. Let's get kicked off, get settled in, and let's get ready to roll here. And then I'll just read the title of the webinar and then start going through the slides right there. Another thing that you want to do as you go through, and this is really powerful, is you want to use what's called trial closes. So throughout the presentation, you're going to want to throw these trial closes in there. And now, what are trial closes? Well, trial closes are these little phrases, little questions that get them saying yes and nodding their head a lot. And so some examples are, saying things like, does that make sense? Or, do you guys see how easy that is? Do you see how effective that is? Can't you see yourself doing this too? Do you guys think that you could do this? And you'll notice a lot of kind of the big speakers on stage will do this a lot. And you look around at the audience and everyone's head is just kind of nodding up and down the whole time. And what you're doing here is you're getting them to commit in very small ways. You're getting them used to saying yes, yes, yes. And by the time you get to the close, what do you want them to ultimately say? You want them to say yes. And so adding these in, I recommend, writing these out on a note card, kind of putting them all around the desk. If you want to write out a different one on each note card and kind of surround yourself with them, I think that's a great idea. That's what I used to do. Sometimes even now I'll still pull out a note card, write them down because I'll forget sometimes. But, you say a point and just get used to saying this. You could say it like every minute. Hey, do you guys see how cool that is? Isn't that sweet? Do you see how effective that is? Do you guys think that you guys could pull this off here? Just kind of get used to saying those, and they'll just be nodding their heads. I remember the first time I was on a webinar that somebody was doing this, I literally shouted yes. Maybe you guys have been there before. I shouted yes as I was ironing my clothes, and I was so excited. I was like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. And ultimately, got to the close and ended up buying it. So, yeah, guys, asking trial closes throughout is something that you will see a lot of the best speakers do. Something I try to do, and something that you're going to want to work into your webinar just at the end of, different statements that you make here. All right, so the live webinar, remember, interaction is the goal, not perfection. Perfection is not the goal here, just interaction. That's the value of the live webinar. Now, how do we get people to interact? Now, I've kind of found that there's a few different tricks, a few different tips that you can use to get people to talk back to you in the chat. And remember that we're competing with Facebook. You're competing with people texting them. You're competing with the TV show that's on at the moment or streaming Netflix or whatever. There's all sorts of things that are happening, and you need to cut through all of that as best you can and get them to engage you back in the chat. And so what works really well is you've got to tell people when to chat you and what to chat you. So one thing, and keep it simple, guys, one thing is just to ask them to type yes or no in the chat box. Hey, again, these trial closes, people will say yes back to that. You guys seeing this? Do you guys know who here has run Facebook ads before? Type yes in the chat box or no in the chat box right now. And just let them know to do it right now and make it very simple for them to reply. Just tell them very simply what to put in there. Say, hey, tell me your name and your city. Or tell me, how many years have you been an entrepreneur? How many years have you done this? They can just type a very simple number in there and just always let them know. Say, hey, guys, type this into the chat right now and tell me what's going on here. On a scale of 1 to 10, tell me this. That's a good one to ask in there. What one word best describes, you could say best describes how you feel about whatever it is that you're doing. They might say fear. They might say nerves. They might say excited. They might say, whatever. Another thing to do is say, hey, guys, write this down right now. And tell them, before the webinar, hey, have a notepad out, have a piece of paper out. And it's important to write notes down. And so if you have like a one sentence, that's like a dynamite sentence, say, guys, this is so important. Just write this down right now because you're not going to want to forget this. And say your line there. And you guys might be worried that people aren't going to answer you back in the chat, or maybe there's not that many people on your webinar. That's okay. Sometimes, if there's not that many people on the webinar, I will actually disable the chat so that, it's not showing, who all is in there, and so that they can't see that there's really nobody responding. When I was early on, I would just kind of act like there was a whole bunch of people there. Now we do have a lot of people, and you're going to have a lot of people, on yours, but maybe you get a bad one. Just engage and practice engaging the audience, even if it's a really small audience there. So yeah, sometimes, you can hide the number of people in the webinar. Sometimes you can hide the chat if they're not engaged and if that makes you nervous, but you want to get really used to asking them questions and telling them to engage. All right, so you've kind of gone through the webinar, you're high energy, you're engaging them, you're going through your content, and people are excited. You're going to get people that are excited, through when you kind of ask them, make the turn into the close, and you say, hey guys, has this been good so far? Would it be all right if I told you about a special offer that I have here today? Because guys, I don't like to assume that, I've kind of earned the right to do that. But if you guys are down, if you guys are with me and are excited about this, I'd love to tell you about what I put together for you. And I'll pause. People will say, yes, Dave, go for it. Awesome. Tell us. I love this. And that's when you kind of go into the pitch, and people will be with you throughout the whole pitch. It'll be exciting, and you get to the Q&A at the end. And I like to tell people a few times throughout the training, hey guys, we're gonna do a Q&A at the end. And then when I'm in the pitch, I say, we're gonna do the Q&A here in just a little bit. And then, towards the end, all right, we're gonna do the Q&A here in just a couple minutes here. So stick around with me and we can chat. And the Q&A is the real money maker of the entire thing. The Q&A is where you make your sales. And this is a really fun, a really easy part of the webinar. So let's talk about how to win with Q&A. So yeah, have that Q&A at the end and stay as long as you possibly can, as long as you need to get every question answered. Sometimes that even means, sticking around awkwardly, at the very end. I'll see questions come in, 30 minutes afterwards. And so I stick around, a little bit awkwardly long sometimes just to make sure every question gets answered and everybody is engaged. And so as I told you guys, as you prepared your slides, I like to have the FAQ already prepared. And I want to have those written on the slides at the very end that I would already have, kind of the most commonly asked questions up there as a supplement. So have those prepared. You can kind of already start going through those if nobody's asking any questions. But when questions come in, live, real questions come in, you want to go to those. You want to engage those people right there as priority over the FAQ that you already prepared. Okay, so you'll have these questions that are coming in. How do you kind of manage those? How do you actually handle the questions that people have for you? Well, the first rule is that you want to answer product-related questions first. And so people will ask you, in mine, they'll say, hey, Dave, what landing page do you recommend using for webinars? Or, hey, how much do you see per click? They're kind of just asking about the process. They're asking about webinars in general as a strategy. And then some other people will say, hey, Dave, when does the program start? Or, hey, Dave, how do we log into the program? Or is it given, live, or is it recorded, whatever? And they're actually asking questions about the product. Those people are your hot prospects, and you want to answer their questions first and engage them first. Remember, you don't have to answer everything in depth. I used to do this more where somebody would say, how much does it cost to get a click on Facebook? And I would go into this long answer, and I'd feel like I had to answer everything. People are really cool if you just give them a short answer. Or maybe they've got a question about, how some sort of strategy works. They want to join. You could just say simply, hey, it's a very complicated thing. I go into this in depth inside the program there. That's going to be the best way for me to explain that one. And you kind of give them a little bit, but tell them, hey, you've got the answer. You just don't have time to do it right now, and people will take that. So remember, you don't have to answer everything. And then I think another important thing too, guys, is to use this time to ask questions back to people and engage. And so if somebody says, hey, Dave, do you think this will work for things outside of information businesses? And I would, the answer is yes, it works for a ton of different businesses and industries. Now, what I used to do is I used to just stop there and I'd say, yes, it does. But the obvious conversation to be had here is, yes, it does. Well, what kind of business do you run? What are you looking at doing here? And starting to have a conversation with that person back and forth. And literally, you can talk, they'll type back in the chat, you can talk again, and actually ask some follow-up questions there to engage the person. Don't just answer the questions, use it as a conversation. New buyers will be coming in as they go. You want to be able to see notifications, whether that's on your phone or if you have those on Slack or you have Stripe pulled up in your browser on another screen. You want to be able to see those people come on live. A lot of times people after they buy will come on and say, hey, I just bought, I'm so excited. And what's really fun that I've been doing more is just pull them up live. You can just have them, you can request for them to be a presenter or speaker, or I think they can too on their screen. And you could do that, just pull them on, audio or video, and just start to ask them, say, hey, Karen, I just saw that you bought, this is excited. If you're down, I'd love to pull you on here and just have a quick chat, just kind of hear about your story. And just kind of hear, why you bought and what you're looking to get out of it. And it can be a really powerful initial testimonial for somebody to come on and tell that story and kind of push people off the fence. So really, really cool. They do that on QVC where they say, hey, you just bought, tell me about, your story. And it's really effective because people will resonate with them. And just in general, when you kind of talk about people buying, it usually gets more people to buy because people like to follow the crowd, and people are worried if they're the only one buying, they think that it might be some sort of scam or something. And then finally, guys, kind of throughout the Q&A, you want to repeat the offer So I'm kind of always saying, okay, guys, I'm going to be, heading out here, but the offer is, join now for $9.97. Click this link here, go to this link here, and join today. You're going to get this, 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 and this. And I kind of go through the offer stack. You want to go through the stack that you built up and kind of do all that there, build urgency, because most of the sales are going to come here at this point. And so stick around, just engage people, have fun, answer questions. A lot of times people will be, slow on their questions. So definitely have your FAQ already prepared and get ready to see sales come in the Q&A here and learn a whole lot about your audience. So after the Q&A is done, guys, it is time to celebrate. You just did something that most people are too afraid to do. Most people are sitting in the audience saying, I could never do that, or I would never do that, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the work. And so congrats, because you just did it. And regardless of what happens with your initial webinar, you are on the path to success. And so I think it's important just to take a moment to celebrate it. That's an exciting thing. Recognize that, again, the goal for the first one is completion, not perfection there. Another thing to look out for and be aware of is that your emotions after a webinar can kind of be a roller coaster. At least mine can, and I know other people have said this too. It can kind of be a roller coaster. If things go poorly, and I don't make a lot of sales, or I don't make any sales, or maybe people don't really show up, I can be crushed. I can be really bummed, and I can think this is not going to work, and I can just start thinking terrible things. I can start, maybe this happens to you and you think, oh, Dave, lied to me. This boot camp doesn't work. Webinars don't work. I wasted all this time and money, and it can be kind of a wreck. So just know that that's coming if things go poorly, and just know that those are not true things. It happens to all of us. You're part of the club, and it does not mean what you're going to be thinking that it means right afterwards. So remember, that's why we do it week after week, so that you can test and optimize. And I've done webinars that at the beginning, I did a webinar recently, that the first 3 weeks, I think I made like 2 total sales. And I'm like, this thing is not going to work. And then fast forward 3 weeks after that, and I made 14 sales in a week. And then the next week I made 17 sales. And so when I start webinars, they're bad. And that's why you optimize and test and tweak and do it every single week. So that's okay. And if things go great and you make lots of sales and people are excited, do a little dance, celebrate, pump your fist in the air. That is exciting. That is a huge, huge win. But guys, ultimately, I think what's the sign of completion here and the victory here is just doing the webinar, getting it out there, and that's what would be exciting for me here. So just kind of know that roller coaster is coming, and do not pivot away if things don't go how you planned. It's okay. We'll test, tweak, and optimize moving forward and get it turned around. And then at this point, guys, take your little break, but it's time to move on to the post-webinar actions. Make sure that your emails are going out. Make sure your replay is set up and your next webinar for next week is all set up. So congrats, you finished the webinar, and I will see you guys in the next video where we will talk about the post-webinar actions. See you guys there.